The moment everything tilted, I knew something in my life had snapped out of place the second I heard my name shouted across the sun-bleached parking lot, sharp, echoing, and stained with a kind of triumph I couldn't quite decode. It was the kind of moment that feels like it happens in slow motion, like your heartbeat trips over itself right before something irreversible occurs. I turned, squinting against the glare bouncing off windshields, and there she was, my ex, Mariah, holding a neon-pink shopping bag as if it were a detonator. "Ramiz," she called again, that smile curling in a way that told me she knew something I didn't. Perfect timing. I still don't know why I moved toward her. Habit? Curiosity? Or maybe I just wasn't ready for the universe to pivot in a direction I couldn't predict. But her smile stayed, and I felt that old mixture of resentment and unfinished business pulling me closer, like a rip current. She thrust the bag at me before I could speak. "You lost the bet," she said, her voice sugary sweet, but her eyes glittering with mischief. "So this is yours now." I blinked, confused. "What bet?" "Oh, don't play innocent. Remember? Last month? If you can get through the whole summer without canceling a single plan, I'll do anything you want. And you said, same goes for you." "Well," she made a grand gesture, motioning to the bag as if unveiling a prize on a game show. "You canceled. Twice." Her words hung in the warm air, thick and impossible to swat away. I opened the bag cautiously, half expecting confetti to explode in my face. But instead, something softer, silkier, slid beneath my fingers. I lifted it slowly. A swimsuit. A women's swimsuit. Bright coral pink, with soft ruching along the sides, delicate straps, and little gold accents that shimmered in the afternoon light like some kind of tropical treasure. The kind of swimsuit that would make strangers on a beach wonder who she was. Except there was no she. Just me. "What is this supposed to be?" I asked, though my voice cracked more than I wanted it to. I hated that she noticed. "It's your summer makeover," she said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. "My personal project. My redemptive arc." She shrugged. "Look, we didn't end well. I know that. But don't you think it'd be fun to reconnect? And don't worry, it's all clean. Safe. Just some confidence-building stuff. A little harmless transformation challenge. You used to love those." I remembered. We'd done silly dares, style swaps, little fashion experiments, though nothing ever crossed the line into humiliation. She'd always claimed I had hidden potential, though I never figured out what that meant. Now her words were spinning in my head, colliding with the sight of that swimsuit. I felt heat creeping up my neck, the kind that wasn't from the weather. "You want me to wear this?" "I want you," she said, folding her arms, "to trust me. For once. You said you wanted to get out of your comfort zone this year. Consider this a nudge." A nudge? More like a catapult. But something in her tone, an odd gentleness behind the teasing, made the ground feel less solid beneath me. "And that's just the start," she added. "A whole summer of beach days, style experiments, confidence lessons. You look amazing, I promise." I swallowed hard. The idea was absurd, ridiculous, impossible, and yet, somewhere deep inside me, a curious spark ignited, faint but unmistakable. Not excitement, something stranger. Like the feeling of standing on a shoreline at dawn, watching a horizon you've never stepped toward before. I looked again at the swimsuit. Coral pink. Soft. Bright. Unapologetically feminine. Holding it felt like holding a secret I didn't understand yet. Mariah must have seen something shift in my expression, because her smile softened. "Ramiz, you don't have to be afraid of exploring yourself. No one will judge you. And I won't let anything bad happen." My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of possibilities I wasn't ready to name. The moment stretched between us like a fragile thread. Then quietly, almost imperceptibly, I nodded. Mariah's grin widened, victorious yet oddly warm. "Good. Then your summer as my beach babe begins now." I didn't know what she meant, not exactly. But a breeze swept in from the dunes, carrying the scent of ocean salt and something faintly electric, as if the air itself knew my life was about to unravel and reassemble into something unrecognizable. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure whether that terrified me or thrilled me. The first step I couldn't take back. I don't remember walking to Mariah's car, only the feeling of the world narrowing around me, like every sound had been muffled by some invisible hand. The swimsuit felt impossibly light in my grip, but every step made it heavier, as if each footfall stitched me deeper into whatever was coming next. Mariah tossed her keys in the air and caught them with a little flourish. "You're quieter than usual," she said, opening the passenger door for me as if she were escorting royalty. Or baiting a trap. I couldn't tell which. "I'm just thinking," I muttered. "Good. That's the whole point." The door shut behind me with a soft thud that sounded strangely final. She slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, humming along with some upbeat pop song that clashed bizarrely with the storm inside my chest. As she pulled out of the lot, she gave me a sideways glance. "So, how does it feel?" "How does what feel?" "Knowing you're about to spend your summer trying something completely new. Something bold. Something surprisingly fitting for you." I exhaled sharply. "Fitting? You haven't even seen me wear it." "I don't need to," she said, tapping the steering wheel playfully. "I've always had good instincts about you." Her confidence was unsettling and strangely grounding. The kind of tone someone uses when they've already seen the ending of a story you're barely starting to read. The drive felt longer than it was. My thoughts bounced between resistance and an inexplicable pull toward whatever she had planned. I kept picturing myself in that coral pink swimsuit, standing on a beach, the ocean behind me, strangers glancing my way with those curious looks people give when they're trying to figure someone out. The image should have embarrassed me, but instead, it made something flutter low in my stomach. A soft, unfamiliar ache, like nerves braided with possibility. Mariah parked near her apartment, which overlooked a narrow strip of coastline. You could hear the waves even with the windows up, their rhythmic hush like the slow exhale of something ancient. "Bring the bag," she said. "We're starting today." "Today?" My voice cracked. "Right now." Her smile held steady. Transformation doesn't schedule itself. Inside, her place looked almost the same as when we dated, walls scattered with Polaroids, plants hanging from shelves like quiet spectators, and that faint citrus scent she always loved. But now, instead of memories, everything felt like it was watching me, waiting. She gestured toward the hallway. "Changing rooms open." I froze. The swimsuit crinkled softly as I tightened my grip on it. 1,000 excuses fired through my head. I could leave. I could laugh it off. I could say the whole thing was a joke, that I changed my mind, that this wasn't me, that I couldn't possibly. Mariah stepped closer. Not forceful, not demanding. Just close enough that her voice softened into something careful. "Hey, you don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing." Willing. The words settled somewhere deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. I swallowed, my pulse loud enough to drown out the surf outside, and walked toward the hallway. My hands trembled as I pushed open the bathroom door. It clicked shut behind me, sealing me inside a small room that suddenly felt like the threshold of two different versions of myself. I looked in the mirror. There I was, familiar, ordinary, safe. My reflection stared back, confused and restless, as if he already knew what was coming and wasn't sure he could handle it. I held up the swimsuit. The coral color glowed softly under the bathroom light, warm and inviting, like it wasn't judging me, just waiting. My breath shook. Then, slowly, almost reverently, I began to step into it. Fabric slid against my skin, cool and delicate, hugging me in places I'd never imagined feeling tension before. I pulled the straps over my shoulders, heart thundering as the shape of me shifted subtly, not dramatically, but undeniably. When I finally looked up at the mirror again, my breath caught. I didn't look like someone else. I looked like someone I'd never allowed myself to see. Someone softer, stranger, braver. Someone who might exist not in spite of the world, but alongside it, unapologetically. A knock sounded at the door. "Ramiz?" Mariah's voice was gentle. "You okay in there?" I hesitated, gripping the sink for balance as a tremor passed through me, not of fear, but of the unmistakable sense that something enormous had just begun. "I think so," I whispered. And for once, the words felt real. The beach babe reveal that wasn't supposed to matter. When I finally cracked the bathroom door open, the soft click sounded louder than it should have, like a cue in a play I hadn't rehearsed for. Mariah was leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, pretending not to look eager, even though her eyes flicked toward me the instant the door moved. And suddenly my breath hitched, because stepping out felt like stepping into a spotlight. I kept one hand on the doorframe, half shielding myself even though the swimsuit covered everything perfectly. Still, the air felt thinner, my skin warmer, and the world sharper. Mariah's lips parted very slightly. Not mocking, not gloating. More like she was seeing a hidden shape revealed under dust and light. "Wow," she murmured, almost under her breath. "I knew it would suit you, but this is better than I thought." My instinct was to fold into myself, shoulders tightening, chin lowering. "Can you not stare?" "I'm not staring," she said. "I'm taking in the moment." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't hide the way my face heated. Some tiny pulse of electricity traveled up my spine, not humiliation exactly, but something adjacent. The same feeling you get when someone compliments you in a way that feels too honest. She stepped forward a bit, and I braced myself, but all she did was gently lift my chin with 2 fingers. Her eyes softened. "You look like someone who just stepped out of their own shadow." I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I just breathed, and somehow even that felt too loud. She pulled her hand back and clapped once, switching gears with her usual theatrical flourish. "Okay, enough emotional symbolism. Beach time." My eyes widened. "Right now? Like this?" "Of course like this. The whole point is confidence." "Mariah, I've been in this for 5 minutes. And you're already doing great." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that stepping outside dressed like this felt like crossing a line I didn't understand. But she was already grabbing a loose, flowy cover-up from her closet, a soft white thing that shimmered faintly in the light. She draped it over my shoulders. "There," she said. "Training wheels." Something about the gesture, gentle, non-judgmental, undeniably supportive, settled the frantic rhythm of my heart. I slipped my arms through, and the fabric floated around me like some quiet reassurance that I didn't need to be bold all at once. We walked out together, down the stairs, onto the warm pavement, and then toward the beach. The ocean breeze hit me first, cool, lifting the cover up, brushing my legs with the same curiosity Mariah had shown. The scent of salt and sunscreen and faint coconut drifted through the air as the afternoon sun cast everything in a soft glow. People were scattered across the sand, laughing, tanning, playing volleyball. I hesitated at the edge of the boardwalk, my feet glued to the wood. Mariah noticed instantly. "Hey," she said, stepping beside me. "What's going on in your head? Tell me. I don't know how to do this." "You don't need to know how. You just need to be here." But I shook my head. What if people look at me weird? What if someone says something? What if? "What if," she cut in, "you walk down there and realize none of the worst-case scenarios matter? What if you surprise yourself?" She wasn't pushing me. She wasn't dragging me. She was just standing there, a steady presence in a moment where everything inside me felt unstable. I closed my eyes for a second, and I felt it. The wind. The soft movement of the cover-up brushing my sides. The faint warmth of the sand waiting beneath me. The swimsuit hugging me with a strange mix of vulnerability and security. And then, taking a breath that felt like stepping into unfamiliar sunlight, I took one step forward. Then another. The boardwalk faded behind me. The sand shifted under my feet. The world didn't stop. No one pointed. No one laughed. Instead, the ocean roared its welcome, indifferent and powerful, like it had been expecting me. Mariah walked beside me, hands in her pockets, humming softly as if this were the most natural moment in the world. But inside me, something was shifting. Not a dramatic epiphany. Not a sudden clarity. Something quieter. Like the beginning of a truth finally gathering the courage to rise. And as a warm wave surged over my toes, carrying foamy white against my ankles, I felt something unfamiliar blooming in my chest. Not fear, not shame, but the fragile, trembling edge of possibility. Waves don't ask who you're supposed to be. Mariah stopped a few steps ahead of me, turning back with that half-smile she always wore when she knew she'd orchestrated a moment I wasn't ready for. The sunlight hit her hair just right, making her look almost unreal, the kind of person who moves through the world without ever tripping over their own identity. I envied that. I'd always envied that. But as the tide rolled around my feet, cooling my skin and settling into the spaces between my toes, I realized something simple and startling. The ocean didn't care who I was supposed to be. It only cared that I showed up. Mariah spread her arms.
See?
No one's staring. No one's judging. The world didn't collapse. I glanced around. People were laughing, tossing frisbees, pulling coolers through the sand. A couple nearby was building a lopsided sandcastle. A kid was burying his dad in sand up to the neck. A group of teens took selfies near the shore. None of them cared about me. None of them even noticed me. The relief washed over me harder than the waves. I feel strange, I admitted. Strange how? Like I'm balancing on some invisible line. Like I'm not who I was when I woke up this morning. Mariah nodded thoughtfully. Because you're not. I swallowed. That's dramatic. Maybe. But also true. She pointed at me, her expression tender but steady. Right now, you're being brave. And bravery changes people. Her words sank deep. Bravery. It didn't feel like bravery. It felt like I'd been peeled open, every uncertainty exposed, the sunlight hitting parts of me I'd never let see daylight before. But maybe that was a kind of bravery after all. Mariah walked toward the shore, motioning me to follow. I hesitated only for a second before stepping forward. The sand warmed beneath my feet, soft and shifting, holding me but not gripping me. You know, she said, glancing over her shoulder. You're moving differently. I nearly tripped.
What?
What does that mean? Relax, she laughed. Not bad different. Just lighter. Like your shoulders aren't carrying the same weight. I wasn't sure what comment unsettled me more, that she noticed my movements, or that she was right. I did feel lighter. Not physically. Emotionally. Like the act of wearing the swimsuit, of not hiding, had peeled away some invisible burden I hadn't realized I'd been dragging around. We reached a patch of sand near the water, and Mariah dropped her beach bag with a soft thud. She sat down and patted the space beside her. I lowered myself carefully, adjusting the cover-up instinctively. Mariah noticed, but she didn't comment. Instead, she dug in her bag and pulled out a pair of sunglasses, gently placing them on my face.
Why?
I asked. Because they look fabulous on you, she said simply. I snorted, but the warmth that spread in my chest wasn't irritation. It was something like being seen without feeling exposed. The sky stretched wide above us, the horizon melting into blue upon blue, and the rhythmic hush of waves became the soundtrack to an unexpected peace settling around me. For a few minutes, we sat quietly. Not awkward, not tense, just present. Then Mariah spoke, her voice softer than before. Can I tell you something? Something I didn't mention earlier? I turned to her, heart pinching with sudden nerves. What? She brushed a stray hair behind her ear, hesitation flickering across her face, rare for her. This whole challenge? The swimsuit? The beach? It wasn't just about you losing that bet. I waited. It was about giving you a chance to explore something I think you've been avoiding. My breath caught. Explore what? She took a slow breath. Yourself. The parts of you keep burying. The curiosity you don't let yourself acknowledge. Her eyes were steady, not confrontational, not accusatory, just honest. The version of you that feels more right than you realize. I stared at her, the words hitting me like a soft impact wave, unexpected but impossible to ignore. I'm not saying you're supposed to be someone else, she continued quickly. I'm not labeling you. I'm not pushing you anywhere. I just think there's more to you than the box you keep forcing yourself into. And maybe today shows that. The world seemed to tilt in a way that wasn't painful, just disorienting. Because suddenly, every flutter, every ache, every tremble from earlier made sense. Maybe it wasn't embarrassment. Maybe it wasn't fear. Maybe it was resonance. Like tuning into a version of myself I didn't know I'd silenced. I exhaled shakily. I don't know what this means. You don't have to, she said gently. Not today. Not yet. A wave slid up the sand, stopping just inches from my toes, as if listening. Mariah leaned back on her hands, looking out at the horizon with a soft smile. Besides, she added teasingly, this is only day one of your beach babe summer. Plenty of time to figure it out. I laughed weakly, but my mind was spinning, unsure whether to be terrified or grateful, or both. But as the sun warmed my skin and the ocean hummed its patient lullaby, one quiet thought rose through the chaos. Maybe I wasn't supposed to understand today. Maybe I was just supposed to experience it. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The day my reflection started asking questions back. We stayed at the beach until the sun melted into the horizon, the sky turning into this watercolor blend of peach and lilac. The kind of sunset that makes you forget, even just for a heartbeat, that real life isn't always this soft. Mariah stood and brushed sand off her legs, then offered me her hand without saying a word. I hesitated, because every small moment suddenly felt like a choice that carried weight, but I took her hand anyway. Her grip was warm, grounding, almost like she'd known I'd need the extra stability before I did. She guided me up the boardwalk, the wooden planks still warm beneath our feet. My cover-up fluttered around me with each step, catching the last glow of the evening light. I kept waiting for the familiar spike of self-consciousness, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt strangely suspended, caught between versions of myself, not quite belonging to either. And yet, for the first time, that in-between space didn't feel like failure. It felt like possibility. Back inside her apartment, the shift in atmosphere hit me instantly. The beach felt freeing, expansive, anonymous. Here, under her soft yellow lamps, everything felt closer. Too close. Like whatever had cracked open earlier could spill into the room if I wasn't careful. Mariah seemed to sense the tension trailing behind me. She didn't say anything. She just walked into the living room and turned on the dimmer lights, softening the edges of everything. "You're quiet again," she said gently. "Tell me what's going on." I sat down on the edge of her couch, fingers curling into the hem of the cover-up. "I don't know. I don't know how to go back to normal after today." "Who said you have to?" she asked.
Me.
"I have to, don't I?" She tilted her head, studying me with an expression that wasn't pity, wasn't amusement, something gentler, something like recognition. "Ramiz, you're allowed to be different from who you were this morning. Humans aren't statues." Her words hit harder than I expected, because deep down, I had been trying to be a statue. Unmoving, predictable, carved into the shape people expected. Stability always felt safer than curiosity. But today, curiosity didn't feel like danger anymore. It felt like a door, and that terrified me. Mariah sat beside me, not close enough to crowd me, not far enough to feel distant. "Can I show you something?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She reached into a drawer under her coffee table and pulled out a small rectangular makeup palette. Nothing elaborate, just a few soft tones. My heartbeat jittered instantly. "Oh no," I said quickly. "Mariah, I can't." "It's not what you think," she assured me. "I'm not giving you a makeover. I'm not transforming you into some caricature. I just want to show you something subtle. Something honest." She opened the palette and held a brush lightly between her fingers. "You trust me, right?" The question landed softly, but undeniably. Trust her? I'd always trusted her in strange, dangerous ways. Even after we broke up, even after the mess we left behind, she'd always seen parts of me no one else bothered to notice. And today, she hadn't judged me. Not once. "Yes," I finally whispered. "Okay," she said, her voice gentle. Then close your eyes. I did. The brush touched my skin, barely there, more like a whisper than a sensation. A soft sweep across my eyelids. A dusting near the bridge of my nose. The faintest trace along my cheekbones. Nothing heavy, nothing exaggerated. Just subtle, thoughtful.
Open, she said.
I looked, and something inside me shifted again. Because the reflection staring back at me wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a woman, or a caricature, or some exaggerated fantasy. It was still me, but softer. More defined in ways I'd never explored. More open, more true, somehow, like someone had turned down the harsh fluorescent lighting in my identity and revealed a gentler version underneath. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Mariah watched me carefully. Not proud, not smug, just patient. This, she said softly, touching the corner of the mirror with one fingertip, isn't about femininity or masculinity. It's not about labels. It's about letting yourself see every possible version of you, instead of shutting them out before they can breathe. My throat tightened, because for the first time in my life, my reflection wasn't asking, "Who are you?" It was asking something scarier, something quieter, something truer. Who could you be if you stopped saying no to yourself? I inhaled shakily, the answer nowhere near formed, but the question suddenly impossible to ignore. Mariah rested a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Hey," she murmured, "whatever you're feeling right now, it's valid. All of it." And I realized that what scared me wasn't the makeup, or the swimsuit, or the beach. It was the way I felt in them. Not wrong. Not embarrassed. Not out of place. But right in a way I didn't have the vocabulary for yet. And that unfamiliar rightness was more terrifying than anything else in the world. The night I realized I wasn't afraid of softness anymore. For a long moment, I didn't move. I just stared at the person in the mirror. At me, but not the version I'd spent years rehearsing. This version didn't look confused or lost. They looked honest. As if someone had peeled back a layer I didn't know I'd been hiding under, and revealed something small and shining beneath. Mariah didn't rush me.
She didn't speak.
She just stayed close enough that I could feel her presence like a steady anchor, letting the quiet settle around us. The kind of quiet that wasn't empty, but charged, alive with unspoken truth. When I finally exhaled, it came out shaky. "I don't understand what's happening to me." "You don't need to understand it right this second," she said. "Not everything reveals itself right away. Some things you feel before you know." "But why now?" My voice wavered. "Why today?" "Because you finally stopped running from yourself," she said without hesitation. The words hit me like a soft punch. Not painful, just startling in their accuracy. Mariah touched my reflection in the mirror again, her fingertip hovering above my cheek. "You've always had this softness inside you. Not feminine, not masculine, just human. But you tried so hard to layer hardness over it. Today, you let yourself breathe." I swallowed, trying to steady the growing storm inside me. Softness feels dangerous. "It's not." She paused, her voice lowering. "But pretending it's not part of you? That can be dangerous." I closed my eyes for a second, pulling in air that felt too thin, too full, too real. My heartbeat thudded unevenly, like my body was trying to catch up to something my mind hadn't named yet. When I opened my eyes again, Mariah was still watching me, the kind of gaze that wasn't dissecting me, but understanding me. And something inside me cracked, this tiny, almost imperceptible shift that felt like the beginning of a confession I wasn't ready to say out loud. "I don't know who I'm supposed to be," I whispered. "Supposed to be?" She shook her head gently. "You don't owe the world a performance, Ramiz. You just owe yourself honesty."
Honesty.
The word trembled in the air like a fragile cord. She stood and offered me her hand again, second time today, but this one felt heavier, like an invitation to step deeper into whatever truth I'd been circling all day. I took her hand, letting her pull me to my feet. My cover-up swayed slightly, brushing against my legs. The swimsuit hugged me in that strange, grounding way, and the soft shimmer of the makeup on my skin caught the light, creating a subtle glow that didn't feel artificial. It felt like something inside me finally being allowed to surface. "Come here," Mariah said softly. She led me to the balcony, the one overlooking the shoreline. The sky outside was shifting into twilight, stars beginning to peek through the darkening blue. The ocean kept its steady rhythm below, the waves crashing softly like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me, but somehow kept me in sync. We leaned against the railing, side by side, the cool night air brushing my skin. I felt exposed yet strangely protected, as if the world had quieted enough to let me exist without explanation. Mariah glanced over at me. "Do you remember," she said, "back when we were dating? I used to tell you that you had a whole other side you wouldn't let yourself explore." I nodded slowly. "I didn't understand what you meant. Do you understand now?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I looked down at my hands resting on the railing, slender, delicate in the low light, softened both by the swimsuit and the way I was holding myself. My posture had changed without me noticing, shoulders relaxed, expression gentler, breathing calmer. "I don't know if I understand everything," I finally said. "But I feel something." "What kind of something?" I stared at the horizon, where the last traces of daylight flickered. "Like I'm standing on a threshold. Like one step forward could change everything." "Does that scare you?" "Yes," I admitted. Then, unexpectedly, but not in a bad way. She smiled softly. "Good. Fear means you're close to truth." The breeze picked up, lifting the cover up slightly. I let it flutter, watched it dance around me, felt the fabric against my skin. Delicate, calming, familiar in a way it shouldn't have been after only a day. "Mariah," I said quietly, "when you look at me right now, what do you see?" She didn't answer immediately. She took her time, studying me, but gently, thoughtfully, the way someone looks at a puzzle they care about solving. Then she spoke. "I see someone who's been hiding their own light for a long time," she said. "Someone who finally let a crack form in the walls they built. And through that crack," she touched her chest lightly, "I see truth starting to shine through." My breath caught. She wasn't calling me anything. She wasn't labeling me. She wasn't pushing me into a box. She was reflecting back the one thing I'd been terrified to admit. Today felt right. Not because of the swimsuit, not because of the makeup, but because of the freedom I'd felt, freedom I didn't know I was missing. The truth wasn't a destination. It was the feeling of finally stopping the fight against myself. Mariah nudged me lightly with her shoulder. "You don't have to know who you are tonight," she said. "You just have to keep listening to the parts of yourself that spoke today." I let out a slow breath, the kind that felt like letting go of years of tension I'd never acknowledged. Inside, something settled, something softened, something opened. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what that meant. Not even a little. Becoming the version of myself I was never brave enough to imagine. I didn't sleep that night, not from anxiety, but from the strange, steady hum beneath my skin. I lay awake on Mariah's couch, the cover-up draped over me like a borrowed layer of courage, staring at the faint glow of her ceiling lights reflecting off the walls. Every few minutes, I found myself touching the side of my face, feeling the soft brush of makeup she'd applied. It was almost gone now, but the feeling remained, like a quiet echo of something I wasn't ready to lose. When morning finally seeped through the curtains, pale and hesitant, I sat up slowly. The ocean outside was louder now, waves rolling with more energy, as if the world itself were trying to wake me gently but persistently. Mariah emerged from her bedroom, yawning, her hair a loose mess that somehow still looked purposeful. She paused when she saw me sitting upright. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. I shook my head. "Too much in my head." She walked toward me, lowering herself onto the arm of the couch. "A good too much or a bad one?" I thought about that. Then, quietly, "I don't think I know anymore." She nodded, accepting that answer without pushing. "Do you want to go back to your place for a bit? Shower, change, reset? We can continue this summer challenge at your pace." I looked down at the swimsuit peeking from beneath the cover-up, the coral fabric soft and familiar now. The thought of taking it off stirred something hesitant inside me, like stepping backward after finally moving forward. Actually, I said slowly, "Can I take a shower here?" before going home. It wasn't about convenience. It wasn't about logistics. It was about staying in the headspace I'd found here, this space where I didn't feel like I had to snap back into the version of myself everyone expected. Mariah smiled. Not a teasing smile, not a triumphant one. Just a warm, understanding curve of her lips. Of course. She handed me a fresh towel, and I slipped into the bathroom. When I closed the door, I caught my reflection again. Hair mussed from sleep, makeup smudged, cover-up slipping off my shoulder. And still, the softness in my face remained. Still, the posture that didn't feel forced. Still, the quiet steadiness behind my eyes. It wasn't the swimsuit that changed me. It wasn't the makeup. It wasn't even Mariah. It was the permission I'd finally given myself to step outside the lines I'd drawn. After the shower, I wrapped the towel around my waist, hesitated, then tied it higher, just under my arms, the way I'd seen Mariah do 100 times. It felt natural, not performative, just comfortable. I stared at myself again, and for the first time, the unfamiliar didn't frighten me. When I emerged, Mariah looked up from her mug of tea. Her eyes widened for a split second, not in shock, but in quiet affirmation. "You're glowing," she said. I laughed under my breath. "I'm just clean." "Not that kind of glowing," she said. "The other kind." She didn't elaborate, and she didn't need to. I already felt it. We sat at her small kitchen table, sipping tea while sunlight stretched across the floor. It felt peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. After a while, she said, "So, what happens now? What do you want to do?" "Not for me. For you." I looked at my hands, still a bit shaky, still unsure, but undeniably steadier than yesterday. What did I want? I didn't want to run from yesterday. I didn't want to pretend it didn't matter. And I didn't want to shove all those feelings back into the box where they'd suffocated for so long. "I want to keep going," I said finally. "Not just the beach stuff. Not just the dares. I want to keep exploring this, whatever this is." Mariah nodded slowly, her eyes gentle. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." I exhaled, long, steady, maybe the deepest breath I'd taken in a decade. She stood and held her hand out to me again. The third time. And like the first two, it wasn't a command. It wasn't pressure. It was a promise. "Come on," she said with a small smile. "Let's go start day 2 of your summer." I took her hand, and as she led me toward the door, sunlight spilling through the windows, cover-up trailing behind me like a quiet whisper of who I was becoming, I realized something startling. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of changing. I was afraid of stopping. The ocean waited outside, humming its familiar rhythm, steady, patient, ready to shape the shore again and again. And I realized I was like the tide now, too. Not fixed, not certain, but moving, becoming. And as we stepped out into the warm summer air, I felt it completely. That small, growing truth I'd been circling since the moment I touched that coral pink fabric. This wasn't just Mariah's challenge anymore. This was my beginning. My story. My summer of becoming someone I was finally ready to meet.